Welcome to Deep Dive, where we take relevant topics and issues for everyday people and offer an honest, thoughtful perspective in hopes to encourage and inspire you to look beyond the surface, to better understand one another, take a stand for each other, and promote higher level thinking for better outcomes. My name is John Crude, and today's topic is, can we all just get along? So on May 1st, 1992, a man that you may be familiar with by the name of Rodney King, he was the victim of a brutal police beating in Los Angeles, California. And in the heat of the Los Angeles riots, he coined he coined a phrase where he said, "Can we all just get along?" Right? This was all over the place, all over the tabloids and all the media, and it. I mean, you see it on T-shirts, and it was in shows and comedy skits and all kinds of different things. But it was very popular, and obviously had a very big impact for the period of time that it was, and everything that was happening in Los Angeles at the time. Can we all just get along? Right? It was a powerful statement. And this statement made me think about recently about, and I thought about this through the years, and some of you may have, kind of had the same considerations. And we all can deal with problems in life where sometimes it's a bit of a, like, it can be very daunting to think about how you're going to approach a situation. We all have somebody that we care about in our lives, and maybe perhaps there's something that you want to say or communicate, and for whatever reason you feel like either because the other person, maybe you feel fear and it's a challenge to say something to them because maybe that person's not going to hear you. They'll shut down, stonewall you, what have you. Or maybe you have a personal issue and maybe you feel triggered by things so easily that you just rather not even try. You rather not bother trying to communicate and perhaps repair that relationship or take the risk, as some people feel like it is. They feel like it's a risk. I look at it as it's a chance, right? It's an opportunity to try to connect and bridge the gap where that gap exists, where there's a canyon between you and success, between a better relationship with whoever that person is. And my belief is always like, if it's worth it to you, you have to ask yourself, whatever it is in life, is it worth it to you? If you're doing a business and you're trying to pursue that, is it worth it for you to go through some of the challenges you do? Some people have all kinds of jobs where they got paid far less and they did everything and killed themselves over that job. But to do something for yourself, for your family, to make that effort, to bridge that gap, for whatever reason, people will just buy more time. Like, I'll get around to it. Maybe next week. You know what? They'll be all right. I'll wait until time runs out. And then things get real, right? And then we don't have the ability to actually bridge those gaps anymore. We can't fix it. Those opportunities are gone. So you can look at it as it's a risk to speak to someone, or you can look at it as an opportunity. Another day to try again. Every day we wake up in the morning, we get out of bed and we try again. And whatever it is you failed on yesterday, we get back up and we try again and we try again, right? So with this said, the can we all just get along? This inspired the thought of how I would like to see more dialogue in our communities. I like to see more dialogue in our families. I like to see more dialogue in relationships between men and women, or even just in friendships, or what have you. I personally been in conversations where something that I was trying to offer some insight or some feedback on something that maybe I was a fly on the wall, and I overheard maybe a woman or a group of women, or even sometimes if it's some fellas that are talking or something like that. You might have something to offer, and maybe it gets rejected. In the instance of sometimes experiences personally, like where there's some women that may have some concerns of the fact that I'm a man, and as a man, I can't speak to this because I'm a man. You're not a woman, you don't understand this. And while I understand that to certain extents about certain topics, I feel like it becomes a very short-sighted response, because there are a lot of men who understand things, and there's a lot of assumptions that are made from the other part. And it can also happen the other way around. There are men who make assumptions about a woman's ability or capability of some things. There are a lot of women who don't feel heard. There's a lot of men who don't feel heard, and don't have the opportunity to really demonstrate what it is they bring to the table. And that's a pretty frustrating thing, especially when it's people that you care about and you concern yourself with, right? So, there's give and take in any relationship, and far too often it's one-sided. A lot of people will kind of lean towards trying to take advantage, and they aren't necessarily paying attention to where the balance was lost. You can't go extreme, and you can't, be trying to pull power moves on people all the time, conversationally, and try to take advantage of people's kindness, or they're giving a pass on different things, and we take for granted time in general when it comes to like, communication, right? When somebody is taking for granted the give and take, and they're taking more than they're giving, it can be pretty exhausting when the other person has an attitude, when the other person shuts down, when the other person runs all the time, or the person that's approaching, perhaps the person communicating, is not being mindful of their tone. Maybe they're aggressive, and they're just, maybe some people are very controlling, right? I hear lots of women talk conversations about experiences they've had with some men, depending on, and there's all kinds of factors that go into this, right? We can't address them all. There's cultural impacts on some things, and there's some real tough things that we got to stop and think about sometimes. That reflection in ourselves is think, what part do we play in some things, And we can't be a victim either and just sit there and just be comfortable making excuses of why we won't try and won't reach across, because we miss opportunities, And so whenever there's a imbalance between that give and take, it can cause people to not feel safe to talk. It can limit possibility for resolution or understanding. And it can also destroy trust, right? And all those things are important, right, for to have a more balanced relationship and effective, partnership, understanding, what have you, right? Me personally, a lot of things that I know and that I've learned and that I have a great affinity for, I've learned from women, strong women, intelligent women in my life that I've been fortunate to meet. I've also had some great mentors that were men as well, right? Growing up, I grew up in a female household, right? Mom, grandmother, 2 sisters, single family household. So 2 quotes that I learned from great women in my life. The first, never judge a book by its cover, right? In this instance, this can translate to gender. It could be, your physique, how you appear, what you sound like. There's all kinds of different things, right? You got basketball coaches that maybe never play basketball, but they fundamentally understand the game. They're very strategic, and they study the hell out of it. And they're just amazing coaches, right? Maybe they weren't the best athletes in the world, but they understand the game strategically, right? You have gender. Sometimes you'll have, men that won't give the opportunity for a woman to add her contribution of something. She could be very intelligent, have all capability of doing whatever the job is, the role is, or even just in home and life and whatever it is. There's people that just miss opportunities. Vice versa with there's women that will not listen to a man for certain things, that will just look and say, well, you're a man, this is a woman's issue, you don't understand this and you don't understand that. But yet we have, that may be true in certain instances, but just like we have male gynecologists and we have female gynecologists. Both went to school and studied extensively on the anatomy of the woman's body, and can talk to those things or whatever. Can that male gynecologist feel everything the woman does? No. But, for everything that's, vital and important, he understands and can work just as effectively as the female gynecologist. And if there's anything that isn't known, this is why you have a team, right? And if there's something that's not known, you have an open mind and you're a student in life and you're always learning and you grow. But, there should not be any discrimination in where or who truth and valuable information is acquired from, if it is in fact true and valuable. The second quote is, never assume. You make an ass out of you and me. Some of y'all have heard that before, right? Have you ever known someone who has a nasty habit of making baseless comments, not comments, but baseless assumptions on what you were going to say, how you were going to say it, or what you were going to do, or what you meant by something without any evidence to back their feeling? I've certainly experienced this, right? And I experienced this even recently, having a discussion around something. And I just gave a highlight of, something that I recorded and what have you. And I touch on a lot of different points. But, sometimes when we're expressing something, people feel the need to input things. You know what you should do? You should have did this. And they don't even know the whole story. Further, does said individual have the tendency to do so without even bothering to ask any questions for clarification to avoid potential conflict? You have to ask yourself, how important is that relationship? How important is that position? How important is that job? How important is whatever it may be? If it's important enough to you, you're going to do the work. You should do the work at least, right? Ask the questions. There are friendships that end over really petty stuff because one person just assumed something and they walked away feeling emotions, feeling feelings about certain things, like being divorced. There's experiences that I've had and efforts that I've made with different things, and sometimes conversationally, people will make assumptions that I didn't try to do something. Well, you know what you should have did, and in my mind, I'm like, how can you make a statement of you know what you should have done when you didn't ask me what I have done? You can't make such a claim, and a lot of times those things can be triggers, right, to a lot of people. You can't make statements about things and you didn't bother to understand. So know the material before you speak on it, right? Know the background of things. So when it comes to communication and some of the gaps that exist, right? We all are likely to have some kind of issue or problem, whether you're a mother, you're in child, or father and child, or in a relationship. There are opportunities everywhere for us to try to improve or get better. Perhaps there's a family member that you haven't spoken to in a while. You know, sometimes when we receive messages that are positive, and maybe some of you can resonate with some of the things that I'm talking about. Maybe this is something that you can share with someone that you haven't spoken to, in a while. Perhaps you're scared to speak to this person. Perhaps they're scared to speak to you for some reason because of something. Maybe you come off very intimidating and don't realize you do. There's a whole myriad of reasons for all these things. But I have four things that I'm going to offer today and share with you that I think are effective to take into consideration when it comes to communication. One, manage your emotions. Don't let your emotions manage you. Two, take into consideration the other's intent. This really matters. There are too many individuals out here with ill intent for us to not be willing to give grace to someone that has good intentions and well intended, right? None of us are perfect, but we should always strive to be better communicators. This is fundamentally beneficial in our families, in our relationships, in our professional lives, in our communities, and it serves as the foundation for conflict resolution. This is more important than some people will even realize, right? Sometimes we don't see far enough ahead in our future to understand the value and the importance of developing certain skills now so that later on we can be able to support and be there for individuals that we really care about and have the ability to do it well, right? So, number 3, what can we do? Stop listening for what is wrong. Rather, consider what may be right sometimes about what the person may be communicating. Everyone needs encouragement. Is the individual likely to keep doing something good if it's not appreciated? Or will that behavior cease? I think most likely that behavior will probably start slowing down and start ceasing. A lot of people just give up and they just, they go cold turkey. They don't speak anymore. They just stay quiet. And if it's the kind of individual that they're, responding to, sometimes the other person doesn't even notice when it happened. And that's troubling, Or you can look at it from a different perspective. When rations are low in difficult times, would you rather have a half a plate of food or nothing at all? So you're likely going to take that half a plate of food as long as you can and hope for a day where you can have a full plate of food. Which brings me to the last point. Never take for granted or get comfortable with always expecting others to give you a pass. Don't get lazy. Get better. Even when it may seem like nobody notices, always remember the goal is to keep growing, to be your best self. Don't derail for anyone. So I'm going to share with you a communication creed that I came up with, and hopefully it resonates with you. My goal is to represent to the best of my ability an example of a decent man or woman. Not the only example, but a good one. I'm committed to attempting to bridge the gap that is all too commonly divided between us in discussion. We should always seek to find common ground. For today, we need community more than ever, and more leaders to help rebuild it. I pledge to keep an open mind between myself and you. After all, we should all strive to be better and wiser with age, rather than increasingly bitter and close-minded. Let us always pursue common ground respectfully and with the best of intention. With that said, I want to thank you all for taking the time to come and view this video. And you could have been anywhere in the world, but you're right here checking this video out. I appreciate any comments that you have below. Would love to hear your feedback. Tune in next time. Y'all take care.